one, then you have to choose what to
say.
Highlight. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
My name is Leah. I'm from Denmark, and I've been in the amateur acrobatic world for quite a while. I've been traveling a lot, done different conventions, festivals, trainings. Not so much in Denmark. So meeting a lot of different people. And I'm a midwife as a job. Yeah, I don't know if you want.
I guess communication is important also as a midwife.
Yes,
actually.
for sure.
That's pretty interesting.
So I work a lot with communication in my professional life. And I guess that's also why I have a lot of attention towards it in the acro community, because sometimes it happens very differently, or at least you always, like, everyone is having kids, so when you meet people in a midwifery context, it's like, it can be anyone, like they have their luggage, and it's not the same kind of person that you're meeting over and over, but it's always considering what they bring to the dynamic. And my role is normally to really try to have like the empathic conversation, where I see why are they saying why are they reacting to this as they are, what am I doing to make this happen, what are they already before you start having a conversation with some people, you can tell that they have some fear or some experience that they project onto the conversation from the beginning, which is interesting to notice, so that you can soften the conversation a little bit. Because if I'm there to be on their team, in this context, and if they find me fightful, it's very hard to have a good relationship to them and to help them and make them feel safe.
Okay.
And in the acrobatic world, it's not always the same intention, because I'm more, most of the times it can also vary what is the power energy, but it's often when you meet people, they don't see you as a professional, for example. So this is different. The power energy is different when I meet people in the acrobatic world. But this power is interesting, because you also meet it when doing acrobatics. It's just not always handled in a way that I like.
Yeah. So, well, I guess the power that you're saying can also vary, like, first of all, if you're like communicating with your partner or with someone else, and then if they're requesting for tips or anything, or if you're going as a free will, let's say, to, like, sometimes you receive tips from people that you don't really want to receive the tips, and then they're like, okay, thank you. Yeah. But what can you say about these power energy? What do you feel about this?
So it can definitely be abused. Not saying that it's always abused, because of course it's not, but that's when you see it clearly. Most of the times this is easier to recognize when you see it from the outside, and sometimes it's harder to recognize when you're part of this. I tried it myself, and it's also easy to recognize some of the same patterns in other partnerships, or even just in short connections in training.
Can you give an example of an abuse?
But as in any other communities or settings, if there is a difference in power, I don't know if power is the right word, but like if you have a professor in school, or if in acro, if there's someone who's really talented or knows a lot about acro, it creates this difference in knowledge or in skills or in something that makes it easier for beginners, newcomers, to look up to these people, and that gives them more power. Just that.
Yeah.
And if you're not careful, as the one with the power privilege, then you can definitely hurt some people, or abuse that power. How is it abused? It's abused if you wanna take advantage of this person to, it can be sexually, it can be manipulating with their thoughts of how they're doing acro, or other things. I often see it. It's definitely also happening the other way around. I'm often seeing it with bases that overpowers a little some flyers, or maybe even to take it to an extent. It's often a masculine energy that overpowers the feminine energy. And
so, do you think you could give advices, on what to look for if you want to avoid overpowering your partner, or when you're communicating?
As the one that has the power privilege.
Yeah.
So, I recently talked to a base who said only giving flyer cues is basically gaslighting. So that's maybe extreme, because but this base also often speaks out loud about his own corrections. Because it can be that the flyer doesn't know what's going on, like what can be corrected in one way or the other. But when the base is saying out loud, "Oh, I need to give you more support this way, so you want to go there. That's what's happening. I'll do that, so you feel safe for going there." That's a very different way of approaching it than you don't have enough weight in your heels, for example. Or you don't shift not enough to the back, or something like that. Then it's like only putting the responsibility on the flyer. And also, it's not so educational.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't give the flyer a chance to think what can be wrong, like what can be better. If you just correct it and without saying anything, the flyer will always think that, now it worked better because I corrected this thing that he was, of course, perfect, because he's so much more experienced. But that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Even if you have a difference in experience. And I really like this approach because it's also making the flyer feel part of the team instead of just I want to try this horse.
Yeah.
And so it makes this team feeling bigger, and also take the responsibility of the trick on both parts, instead of only the fly.
Yeah, so an open communication on okay, this was me, this might be you. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting.
And sometimes also just thinking about what is important now. Is it important that we get this trick? Or do I have a look of a confused, anxious flyer in front of me? Maybe it's not, you don't have the headspace for actually learning new things, because we are still too much aware of the communication or the vibe in between the two. So maybe we do something else, or maybe we just loosen up the vibe by saying something funny or making fun of yourself or something. Like, take yourself into the vulnerability. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah.
It is a big one. I know I like this one sometimes also.
Yeah.
Especially when we go into the analytical mode and we're like, okay, just focus about the trick, and then everything becomes so serious.
Yes.
And you forget the fun.
Yeah. And you also don't learn.
Yeah.
That's a fact that you cannot, if you're anxious, if you're like, you can only occupy your head with so many things. And it's just a block in the brain, like chemically. So it's not even questionable. It's just you cannot tell people who are in a freeze mode, or like, that's maybe extreme, but it doesn't go in. It doesn't help to say all the right words.
So the only way to be a good acrobat is actually to have a blast.
Yes. I mean, that's my thing now. It took me a while to get there, though. So, but I have a huge bullshit filter now, I'll say.
Yeah?
Yes.
And how do you react to bullshit?
I sometimes I give it a second chance to see, is this actually a thing, or am I judging too hard too early? If I am, of course it will change. If I do my part right, it's always like, oh, what do I bring into this conversation? Did I come with a weird energy that made this person react like this? Because you can only change yourself.
Yeah.
And so you have to be aware of your boundaries, of what you bring into the conversation, and then you can take notice of, is this a person that I want to spend time with, or is it worth my energy and time to play with this person? As long as I know that my road is clear.
Yeah.
And if not, I'm like, nah, you might be the best acrobat I've ever seen, but sorry, I don't. It triggers me a lot when people are not respectful in their communication. So for me, it's the most important part for me is that I have fun doing acro. And it turns out that you also get better that way. It's not like just silly and just not giving a shit about the skills. It's actually, for me, very useful to learn that you have a nice atmosphere around the training. Yeah. So I just, if possible, sometimes it's not possible. If possible, I cut them. The people that I feel don't appreciate training with me could be a thing. If they feel like they're too much in their own ego, I'm like, okay, I can train with you, but I know that I'm way better, and I'm like, oh, this is just, you're just a toy,
Yeah, it's a little...
That's it's just like, okay, I'm earning my money somewhere else, so I don't need to do this. And always, like, that's also an advice, like, what is your goal with this training? And it's so easy to forget.
Yeah.
Because you just want to nail these tricks.
I know.
And it's also nice, but it's not so nice if you have really destructive thoughts and feelings all the time.
So how do you, like, I find so many times we go into the training with like the best energy ever, and then let's say it's a bad day.
Yeah.
Like a bad physical day, you're not really connected to your partner. Maybe you also like feel like it's hurting you or it's hurting your partner. Like, how do you react to this to keep it fun? And
I'm always perfect. And do the right things.
Okay, oh, that's nice.
I'm always perfect.
This is Leah, she's always perfect, so this is the cue.
Yeah. I love it. Oh, I think that's exactly what needs to be changed. That no one is perfect. Like, we all have bad days and we all have these feelings. And I also react completely miserable to my partner sometimes, and I say shit, and I, but if you feel, sometimes you just, even if it's a person that you've been working really well with for days, months, years, of course you can have days where it just doesn't work out so well, or you get frustrated with the tricks. And I think it's all back to communication. Like, take a break, talk. If it still feels shit, or it's even worse, maybe you don't train together that day, or do something else together.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important that if you have a main training partner, which I don't, so it's easy.
So you just change. Okay, next.
Ding, 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 ding. Best advice. Don't get sick next. No. And in that case, that you also take breaks from each other and also do other things than training together. So you also,
create a different kind of connection.
Yes,
That's actually nice.
and then you can talk about other things as well.
Yeah. Not be only focused. So we kind of said some things for like, if you feel like you have a position of power, but like, if you are maybe shy or more like introverted, or you feel like you have less level, like, how can we, do you have any tips to avoid like getting into that thing of being gaslighted or being overpowered?
Yeah.
Hard one.
Yeah, it's a hard one because it all depends a lot, and it's really hard to say have clear boundaries because you don't always know what your boundaries are before you experience them.
Yeah.
Because it's such a new setting. If you're not used to being in this world, it's so constructed in a way. Like you go to a convention, you see new people, you're there with them for maximum of 1 week.
Yeah.
Maybe only 1 day, some days. And then you go home again. So it's like all speeded up version of life in a way, and everyone is there to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
And we all have different tendencies. So I think if you're like this, don't be too hard on yourself. Like, don't have too big expectations to what you're gonna do acrobatic wise. But maybe I know I already said it, but maybe focus more on what would make a great time for you, which people are nice to be around. And sometimes it's nice to be around people that has kind of the same level, and also it is nice. That's what's creating all this. But it is nice to get to train with some people that know more, have more experience. And it's also okay, but just fucking look out, have a huge bullshit filter, because even if you're good, you can be a super bad communicator.
Yeah.
And super convincing in your communication. It doesn't mean you're a good communicator. Doesn't mean that it's the best for you. But it's really easy to be convinced, because some people are very convincing when they talk and when they seem to know what they're talking about. And maybe they do, acrobatic wise.
Yeah.
But if they only want to put on you, if you only make corrections to you, and they only want to put on, teach you how to do it, and then they never listen to what comes back, big red flag for me. Yeah. How to avoid it? Yeah, it's not something that you necessarily can avoid to feel uncomfortable in this situation if you're very introverted and shy. But maybe speaking out loud what your needs are and how you like to communicate and how you like to train before you even start training. Because in that case you cannot offend people. Because then it's not like a correction of their way of communicating. It's just clearing how we work together. But it's also much to ask if you're new.
Maybe also, like, I was thinking as the conversation was going, like maybe we can also make a checkup, like how do you feel after a training session?
Even before,
yeah. How do you feel before is super important too. But like definitely, like if every time you're training with a person then you're feeling shit after, maybe it's not a good sign.
Yeah. Or if you feel like you did everything wrong.
Yeah.
Even if you weren't told, if you have that feeling, I mean, it might be that you just felt like you were doing everything wrong, but it might also be part of the way you worked with the partner, even if they were not saying you're doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
So just be mindful about that. Yeah, I think the checkup before and after. Because sometimes you can also meet people and be like, ooh, they really hate everything I'm doing. But maybe they just didn't sleep, or they have something else in mind that they didn't share, but you feel it. Like, I'm a very sensitive person. Huh? Sensitive to...
Am I a person?
Am I a person? No, Superman? No. I'm very sensitive to these energies, and if you are that, then it's maybe nice to know where the other person comes from. Maybe they just worked with someone who made them feel really shit, and then they pass on that energy. That's also a thing. Like, when we create a community like this, you see what people are doing and you replicate it.
Yeah.
If you're not careful.
Yes, it's a good one. Huh? It's really important. Yeah, knowing where you are at, and always clean your energy before you go.
Yeah, or at least tell the person that you're working with where you come from, where to start a training if you. Yeah, even if you know the partner, or if you don't even want them.
Yeah. So today I feel very shitty, very floppy, no body tension at all. Can we do crazy shit together?
Or maybe just, I need a lot of assurance today.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or sometimes we also just do, let's do 3 without talking. Because sometimes your head is just like, too much information to...
Yeah, you can't get anything more.
Yeah.
Super nice. Really cool.
Change the focus. Let's do a silly face on the top of the temple. Or something like that. I mean, I know it's silly, but it really helps to
relax.
Get this tension out of the body.
That's really cool.
You can try.
Yeah, I'm good at silly faces.
Yeah, I know. That's why I got to think about it.
There you go. I do silly shit. Thank you so much. So nice. I wish we could be talking about this for hours. Yeah, it's a really interesting topic too.
Yeah, so remind me when you see me like this, in the corner, really frustrated, and not doing what I say. This is what I say, it's not necessarily what I do.
Yeah, remind me too, because especially the non-talking, I have a hard time with this.
Yeah, of course. Always remember that however people react, even if you think that they are like idiots, they always also have a reason to be how they are. It's not that it's necessarily comes from I want to believe that no one is evil, and they always have a reason to be who they are and react how they do. The question is just why, and how to deal with it. And sometimes you cannot deal, like you cannot change them, but you can choose to step away from them most of the times, unless it's your parents or family, like in your.
Or you can also create distance there.
Yeah, depending on your age.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the only situation where I see it's hard to escape.
Yeah.
But for us, almost always.
Yeah,
I would say
path.
always. It's a choice.
Yeah.
But you need to realize it, and you need to choose it and to stay with your boundaries.
In acro, I feel that acro is a little insidious in this, because there are also interests. Like, he's a good bass, she's a good flyer, so I'm gonna take in all the shit because the acro is good, or that levels me up.
Yes.
And it's actually not a good reason.
For me, not, but I cannot say that for some people it's worth it. I had too many years of thinking that I wasn't worth anything in acro. And that's just, now I feel stupid that I actually put up with this. And that's also showing that it's really hard.
It is really hard.
It's a really hard thing to stop when you're in it.
Yeah.
Way easier to be like, oh, they're really fighting, huh? Maybe they should stop working together, or...
Yeah, it's really, but it's really admirable when you have been there and you manage to get out, So actually, it's nice to talk to friends, and if you are in that situation, to talk to friends and ask for their help.
Yes.
Because it takes a lot of willpower.
It does. For sure. and it's hard. I said we can always step away from it, but it's of course hard if it's someone who's in your community, because it's not a big world.
No.
And you always, sometimes you gotta deal with these people being around you, and maybe you can work on your loosening the vibe around being around them, but some people you might have to deal with in the way that you don't necessarily need to play with them all the time, but you will have to be at the same festivals or around them, or you know the same people, or you're in the same community or something. That's also why it's even more important to try not to get into these very toxic situations, because they're not gonna disappear.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much. So nice.
That was actually really nice.
Love you so much.
Nice.